G'day everybody, Terry King from Jafffa Adventures here. Welcome to the channel. Well, this is part 3 of our rig rundown, and we're now going to spend a few minutes going under the bonnet, checking out what we've got there in terms of mods, and then I'll get the car up on the hoist and we can have a look along the chassis and underneath and see what sort of mods are happening there. Alright, well, let's start on the driver's side, shall we? And to kick things off, I've got a lithium battery here for an iTech 120, and I have a install video of that, so I'll pop that down in the description. You can have a look at that. I've also got a battery voltage monitor system, a Victron BVM 712, I believe is the model number, and this is the shunt for that unit. This bus bar is for all of the earths, because every single earth needs to go through that BVM unit. And of course this is the power side of things, and it's hooked up with a 50 amp breaker switch. As a bit of extra security, every single circuit that I've got running through that battery goes through this Narva fuse panel. Each of the individual items are labeled and the wires are all color coded. So if we have a catastrophic failure in the system somewhere, it'll kick that 50 amp fuse out. If there's an individual circuit failure somewhere, it'll blow the individual fuse out from this fuse panel. I recently posted up a video where I ran power to my rooftop tent, and I've got it running along this inner guard, up along the A-pillar to the Rhino rack. So if you haven't seen that, it's worth checking out. I'll throw a link to that particular video in the description. The factory Toyota airbox is a shocker, and it is notorious for letting dust pass the filter, either along this seam or through the filter material itself, and then dusting motors. When I purchased this vehicle, one of the first mods that I did was I got rid of that. So inside of there is a unifilter, which has got a reasonably thick rubber gasket that runs along the perimeter of the airbox, and that prevents the dust from getting in. And then of course the foam air filters, the oiled air filters. I've been through areas of bull dust where it has come up over the bonnet in waves, and I have not had any dusting issues past that filter. I'll pop a link in the description and you can actually see where I've gone through those dust areas, and then you can see me pulling the filter out afterwards to clean the thing. Here I have tapped into the hot water system and run 2 hoses, hot water heater hoses out. You can see them running through here and down to a water pump, which is located in the bull bar. And you can just see the white head unit of that water pump on the bull bar. So that allows me to have hot showers whenever I want and on tap. As long as the motor is hot, I've got a hot shower. Of course, any circuit that I've got that draws any reasonable amount of amperage, I have them running through relays. So for example, that shower pump, which pulls about 5 or 6 amps, my spotlights, etc., they all run through relays. On the start battery, I only have a very limited number of things actually hooked up to it. One, I've got an Anderson plug, and I've got a portable solar blanket, so if this battery ever does run low on charge, I can simply put the portable solar blanket on it and charge her back up. It's got a power feed for the BC-DC circuit, and the main winch power runs off of the start battery. In this main relay and fuse box, I have got a Alt-S diode, and that takes the charge voltage, or boosts the charge voltage up by about 0.6 volts. I've got the Unichip Q4 system, and that has been gyno tuned, and I've got a significant increase in both horsepower and torque, and makes a massive difference. The other thing I like about it, and I showed this in my interior video, is that you can actually change the maps, and there's about 4 maps you can select from, and one of them is actually a disable map. So you can disable the injectors, which just gives you a little bit of added security if you're leaving the vehicle for a long period of time and you might be concerned about theft. Here I'm running a ProVent catch can, another mod that I would highly recommend for the 200 series cruisers. If you have a look at the intake systems on these things, they're all gummed up with all the soot and dust that runs through the EGR system. This doesn't prevent it, but it helps it a hell of a lot. And this little blue unit here are my breathers. So there are 5 lines running in there, 2 for the diff, the front and rear diff, 2 for the transmission, and one breather for the transfer case. So they're tucked up there quite nicely and out of the way. This bash plate here is the Arb bash plate that comes with the bull bar. And these are just the factory bash plates. I've kept them on. I'm not a hardcore rock crawler or anything like that. This is more of a touring vehicle that I like to take off-road, obviously, into some of the more rougher tracks. So these bash plates are working perfectly fine for me. Up the front and up the back are Arb Bp 51 shocks. And I rate those very highly. They are fantastic. Going down the corrugations, it's like you're riding on silk. The other thing that I've done to the front suspension is I have fully adjustable upper control arms that are also fully greasable. That just helps bring your steering geometry back into play and where it needs to be. Underneath this bash plate, which you can't see, is a diff drop kit because I've got a 2-inch lift. And with that lift, you create a reasonably severe CV angle. So the diff drop kit just helps to correct that CV angle. In terms of an exhaust system, this is a pre-DPF car. So I have got the Tiapan XP system, and I have put a muffler delete in. So the muffler is normally located right here. And of course you've got the resonator here. That Tiapan system has got an absolutely awesome exhaust note. And if you're interested in hearing that, I'll put a link in the description to a trip where we were traversing the Madigan line in the Simpson Desert, and you can actually hear the cruiser going up one of these sand dunes barking, and it sounds pretty awesome. Now, one thing that I do not rate about these Arb B51 shocks are their shock guards, and I've actually put a video and a little bit of a rant about how crappy those shock guards actually are. My solution to that was installing these Bud built units, and so far so good, but it's pretty shitty when you got to install a shock guard to protect the shock guard. Bit difficult to see, but it's got twin airbags in the rear as well as the heavy duty Arb Old Man Emu springs. The other thing I've done is mounted an air tank, and I believe that's around about a 15-liter air tank, which is fantastic because that means I've got 100 psi of pressure and a reasonable volume on tap for whenever I need it. This is the top of the rear diff, and the car is fitted with front and rear Arb diff locks, air lockers. I have fitted a Long Ranger fuel tank that is a 180-liter unit, coupled with the 90-liter unit on the car gives me a total of 270 liters. I've got a air outlet point, an Arb air outlet point if I want to hook up a air pressure hose, for example, if I want to blow down the back of the car after a big dusty trip. And of course you also use that to do your inflation, so your tires. And that's it. That's the extent of the mods under the bonnet and in the engine bay. As you guys know with these cars, you're never really truly finished modifying them. It's sort of an ongoing journey, and I'm no different from anybody else. There'll still be a shitload of mods to come along, and as I do those, I'll try and keep the content feeding onto the page so that you can follow along in the journey. Have an amazing day, everybody, and keep the shiny side up. See you now.